another. My goodness.
Yes. Hello, how are you, December love? I haven't seen you on here before. Is this your first time being here? I like your name. Oh, we got five now. Well, welcome back.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of a topic today because we're kind of out of our flow today. We didn't have one last week. It only takes 1 week and we get thrown off.
Well, we've been doing our group calls, which have been going very well, and getting some people built in that community. So, barely become interested in your spiritual path. I'm kind of in the same boat, Levita, where it's been about a year, a little over a year for me. So there are members that we have of the Conduits that are extremely knowledgeable and wise on this topic. Colin, how's it going, man? And then there are those of us who are kind of new into it. And, part of my role, I think, is that because I'm new, I am your voice. I am the voice of the person who is getting into it. They don't know what's attracting them to this community, spirituality, but something is resonating and you feel gravitated toward it. And that's how I have felt. And it has been a really inspirational path. And
the first parts of the journey are actually kind of the best parts of the journey. It's exciting and it's new and everything is new. It's like anything else, Yeah. I look back on my 3 years ago when I first started having some of the realizations and breakthroughs. I look back on that now with the reverence. Even though I was in the dark night of the soul, I do. There was something so raw and profound about everything that was happening. So even if you're in the dark night of the soul right now, Levita, and you're going through some really difficult stuff, feeling down and depressed and kind of on an up and down spiral or wave, this is one of the best times of your entire life. It really, really is. You'll look back on it and you'll be like, wow, I was so alive and so in touch. Sometimes it's kind of like pushing you into a flow state. Athletes talk about being in a flow state. A lot of people in the spiritual community talk about being in the flow, and it's just a state of pure presence. Sometimes trauma and tragedies, car accidents, things like that, they automatically throw us into a flow state where we're absolutely present. And this spiritual journey that you're on, especially if you've gone through a dark night of the soul, it throws you into that on for a much longer period, not just a moment, but a longer period. So I see that you just came out of that stage, which is good. And don't be surprised, Levita, if it ebbs and flows. If it kind of comes back a little bit, a lot of people fall into the trap of thinking, oh my gosh, I've somehow screwed something up or made some really serious mistakes because now I'm feeling depressed again and I was starting to feel good. No, it can definitely come in and out for a little while, like a wave. And sometimes it can come in strong. Sometimes it can go away for a long time. Sometimes it can come back again. So if that does, I'm not saying that it will, but if it does, don't be alarmed and don't be surprised. That's a totally normal part of the process.
So December Love is asking, I'm trying to figure out my spiritual journey with my twin flame and soulmate. And I'm not sure, December Love, if you're referring to one and the same person or your twin flame and soulmate as being separate. But I know Andrea has some good information on maybe differentiating.
Well, I think Levita and December Love both kind of had a similar type of question. So this might kind of apply to both of you.
Separate.
But if you guys are kind of you're in that place where you're trying to figure out what your spiritual journey is, you're trying to figure out, is this my twin flame? Is this not my twin flame? Pretty much every single person that goes through this goes through that phase of, is this my twin flame? Is it not? And I actually think that it doesn't ever really go away. And I honestly believe that is the evidence of a sane mind, right? Coming into twin flame information, It's definitely outside of the box of what we would call normal. Most people haven't even heard of it.
Yeah.
And you kind of get thrown into this experience, and all these weird things are happening to you. Even if you had heard of twin flames before these kinds of experiences started, you would be like, whatever, twin flames. You just think of it as kind of like a soulmate thing. Like you just read it in passing and it's not something that would resonate with you.
Yeah.
But when you go through this experience with this other person, and then all these weird spiritual experiences start happening and you're acting and behaving in ways that you've never experienced before, you go to Google and you start searching, and people are talking about it, and it starts coming up in your feed, and it's like you can't get away from the twin flame thing if you are going through the twin flame experience. I tried. I totally rejected it. I was like, I don't want anything to do with this stuff. I thought it was stupid. Because I considered myself a very like level-headed and logical person that kept myself in a state of what I was like normal reality.
And some of this stuff defies what we
Right.
traditionally think is logic, and it's really hard to
Absolutely.
describe to somebody who hasn't gone through it. In fact, Colin, who is one of our advanced master members of the community, has said, about picking and choosing your spots of when to share and when is a good time not to share with people who may not be there quite. I want to just make really quick mention that Letitia's on our call,
Yes.
also known as True. She has a fantastic website and her own spiritual business. She's our Conduit of the Month for June 2023. We've got her profile up on the conduits.com.
She does sound baths, meditations. She's learning like Atlantean, or she's actually certified in Atlantean Reiki and Lemurian healing. And she's done a lot of courses and is still in the process of getting a lot of education in the healing arts themselves. And so we recommend her channel. It's the Quantum Mosiac. Check it out.
Sorry for spelling your name incorrectly, Letitia. That was just a, as I'm going up to type mistake, but it's L-A. And Letitia goes by kind of her spiritual name, True.
Yeah, True.
I also want to mention that we've been gaining momentum with our group call packages. And for somebody like December Love, Levita, and Lady T, there is a TFM3, and let me say that slower so that we can get it in, TFM3 group call that allows you to unmute and talk and discuss specifics of what is going on in your twin flame journey with other people who have gone through the same thing. So you're talking with a community of people who get you already. Some are already advanced and past the inner stages of it. Some are going through it just like you. We also have our group call 1 and 2, CM1 and CM2, for all things spiritual, for all things business related.
Yeah, business as well.
We're helping people in their careers or entrepreneurship. And so that's something else. You can go on to our website and get involved in those packages. So, and it also gives you a chance, if you're a member, to be in contention for a Conduit of the Month, where we can put you on our YouTube channel, other social media, and on our website to say what you do.
Yeah, to share your story. And if you guys do have some kind of like business or something like that, it's a place that you can also reach more members of the community, of the spiritual community. And I do think that community is so important. And I think especially at the beginning of this journey, choosing a community that is, you gotta be careful. And that's the honest truth. Like, I think there's a lot of really well-intentioned people out there, us included, right? But you want to make sure that you are talking to people that are going to allow you to be on your journey and not try to make your journey their journey. And that's why we started the Conduits, is we want to give people a place that they can come to find like-minded people and to network with each other, because all of our journeys are going to look a little bit different. And a lot of this journey can feel very lonely, especially in the early parts of the journey and when you're in the dark night of the soul, because a lot of this stuff, you feel like you can't just go and talk to your friends and family about it and be 100% open and honest, about your experience. I didn't tell anyone anything about anything to do with twin flames at all outside of like the twin flame community until more recently. Like now I've been far more open about it, but it was because I knew on some level that people would think it was weird. I don't want people to think I was weird, you know? And
at a first blush, it can be a little bit like that.
Because they're not going to know and understand.
Right.
And so you do need to have that ability to be able to talk to people, right?
Thanks God, my typing's too loud. Yeah, I normally have another computer or something on the side, but I'll be honest with you. I was just practicing guitar downstairs for band rehearsal tonight, and Andrea came down and got me 30 seconds before we went on, so I didn't have a chance to get my computer ready and going. And
it's their big basketball fingers.
Yeah, well, we actually played basketball. Andrea, myself, and my youngest boy played basketball yesterday, and it was funny. It's like Andrea.
I don't know how to play basketball.
Andrea doesn't know the rules to basketball. My son is learning, and I've played college and semi-pro basketball, so it was a good teaching experience.
And he's like this tall.
And I'm 6'4", and she's 5'4", so there's always that too. But it's funny. It was good, and certainly challenged me to make a few moves. I had to pull out of the basket from 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, Colin, you might hear a couple of typing things in here. I'll try to tamp it down a little bit. But anyway.
But yeah, I wanted to just kind of wrap up a little bit with Francis and December Love, or not Francis, Levita and December Love. Your twin flame experience. This is probably the best advice I could give you if you're not sure if you've met your twin flame. It doesn't matter if you've met your twin flame. It doesn't matter if they are not your twin flame, because it's not about them, and you don't need them for your spiritual journey. Whoever this person is, whatever they are, twin flame is just a label.
Can I make a question on Levita's behalf? It's in regard to, I think how you frame the twin flame isn't necessarily your close partner or soulmate. And I think there was a differentiation point there.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was moving toward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, my apologies. Okay.
No, that's okay. I'm glad that you brought it up, because maybe it'll kind of highlight it a little bit. It doesn't matter whether they're your twin flame or not, because this journey, whoever this person was, they're a catalyst in your journey. And it's the mind that we have, the way that we think that we want to label everything to make it make sense. And then we think, well, if we don't know if they're our twin flame or not, then how are we supposed to approach this situation? And that's why I want to bring this point up to you, is it doesn't actually matter if they are or not. It doesn't matter if it even really exists or not. And that's the honest to God truth. What you do know 100% unequivocally for sure is happening is that you are going through a spiritual awakening, and your encounter with this person, it kind of twisted you around and kind of pushed you in a different direction that you weren't anticipating and weren't expecting. And it is both beautiful and destructive all at the same time. And that's actually just a part of life. Oftentimes, in order for us to get on the right path or build something new or create something, we have to tear a lot of things down that don't serve us well in order to get ourselves there. The things that we tear down, they serve their purpose. They were part of the foundation that got you to where you're at right now, but they're no longer serving you for your highest good. And so it's time to let them go to make space for something new. So yes, Colin, your twin flame
and using Conduit in there too.
Yes.
Tip of the cap. Thank you,
yes,
Colin.
Thank you, Colin. And that's why we call this the Conduits. You guys are all a conduit. Your twin flame is also a conduit for change, a conduit. They're a catalyst for you. You're a conduit. We're conduits between the heavens and the earth. We bring each other knowledge and information. It's to
be like a rebirth. It's almost like a brush fire that sweeps through the land and takes care of all the debris and fallen foliage and logs and whatever. And then what happens is there's a period of a burnout, and the land looks scarred and dark. And maybe that's the dark night of the soul period, if I'm using this analogy correctly. But then there's an inevitable regrowth where things come back more robust and vibrant than ever. If you've ever seen, a fire-torn side of a mountain or something, and then 2 years later, and I'm not saying the time frame is in any way related, but 2 years later, there's lush vibrancy on the side of that mountain. So
Yeah.
And it's necessary. The burn down is necessary for the real regrowth and rebirth.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And kind of one more thing to touch on that I started to talk about was finding people that you can resonate with is really, really important. And I would say be careful while you're out there, because our minds take in information. And when we're taking in information, we want to make sure that we're taking in healthy information. You're going to meet a lot of different people on your path. Not just us, the conduits here, but you're going to meet people, wonderful teachers along your journey. And some of them are going to be really great. And then you're going to have to be careful for the ones that don't resonate with you. And, or that maybe might have not the greatest of intentions, because especially when we first start out on this journey, we can be really vulnerable. We're seeking information like crazy. We really, really need help. We're desperate to talk to people that understand. So find good people that are going to give you good, solid information, be supportive, and then also not want to take advantage of you. That's what I would say. But there's a lot of amazing, wonderful teachers out there, not just within the twin flame community. As a matter of fact, I think when you're on this journey, it's probably better to stay away from, we deal with twin flame stuff, so I'm not promoting against us, obviously, but it's really about your spiritual journey. That's the truth. And so be really open. Like, don't get stuck in what I call the twin flame trap, where all you want to do is seek out only information from the twin flame community. Instead, broaden your horizon and go into psychology, go into philosophy, look at science, look at bettering yourself. What is it that I need right now in my life in order to feel good? Pay attention to that inner compass that's like leading you, that your intuition, that's really going to grow right now if you're on your spiritual path.
And keeping things open like that. I'm not sure who said it, but I'm going to quote somebody well-known and an expert. And they say the twin flame is a jumpstart to the transcendence of your mind and your journey.
You know who we're talking about out there.
Colin just said that 14 seconds ago. So
Colin's like,
but I think that was exactly.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, that sounds. I'm going to quote from one of the pioneers of.
Yes,
anyway,
a very well respected.
Yeah. Internal family system is a great resource. Okay.
Yeah. Is that internal family systems? I'll have to look at that. I'm not familiar with it. So thank you, Leticia. I will definitely look at that. So anyway, I hope that helps those of you on here that are new, December Love and Levita. If you guys are still on, hopefully that kind of gives you a little bit of an answer, but it's your journey that's important. That's what's important, not whether you've met your twin flame or not.
So far as validating what Leticia just said, coming across that community, good for trauma imprints. Okay, that's fantastic. And so far as another one of our very knowledgeable members of the Conduit community. So they're just on this call alone, there are 4 or 5 people who we know to be very well versed and very patient teachers and coaches for twin flames and spirituality as the bigger topic. And quite frankly, when we get into business topics and health and wellness and so forth, there's expertise all over the place here. So
there is. There's so many members of the community that are, because being on your spiritual path, it's all about you can't, if you're on a spiritual path, you're all about self-improvement. That's just part of the, what like a par for the,
you're going to another
course,
level,
right?
Yeah, you've gotten past certain levels, and something is prompting you to reach into this next level.
Yes.
And Aaron Apke is doing a podcast coming up called The Fourth Dimension. I think it's
really soon,
June 16th. It may be today for all I know, but
thank you, Levita, for being with us. It's nice to talk with you.
There's something about this fourth dimension and an elevated vibration level, and we're all on this path where we're seeking knowledge. And if you continue to have this thirst and quest for knowledge, it'll serve you well. We had a fantastic conversation yesterday morning, and it was with.
That's her, by the way.
Okay. Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
All the different names.
Yep.
So I won't say the name out loud in this public forum, but very gifted and in tune person from down under, New Zealand, down under. And it was very enlightening, and it ends up that person and I had quite a few synchronicities. We had a wonderful chat about a certain topic for 45 minutes. And that's where you come and say, dang it, I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
Somebody else is feeling or experiencing something similar. Let's lean on each other. And
that's why those calls are so powerful.
The calls really are cool.
They are.
You know? And you can get, right now, while it's still relatively small, you can get in.
A lot of
we unmute the microphones right away. You don't have to put your hand up at this point. You know, maybe once we get a few more, we'll have to do that a little more. But get in on it now and jump in on these calls and express what precisely is going on in your life. You get a recording of that call afterwards. So if you didn't make the call, you still get the benefit of what other members were saying.
Yeah.
There's always new little tidbits of information that are coming out. And I personally, since I'm really relatively, 1 year, a little over 1 year that I've really escalated into this journey, I'm learning so much from these calls, and grateful for the great minds and great hearts of people who are sharing their stories and their readings and their research.
Well, if you guys like what we've offered so far, I'll tell you this. I am probably, like, almost all of the stuff that I share is a huge result of being in the spiritual community and being a part of, like, group calls, in like the things that I did before in my prior parts of my career. It's a lot of self-study, for sure. I've done a ton of self-study, but I have learned so much from all of the beautiful and brilliant minds that I've come across as I've been working with people in the spiritual community. It really has shaped me to be what I am. And so if you guys like the things that I talk about and the kinds of subjects that we discuss and the answers that we're giving, it's as a result 100% of the community itself and all of these beautiful people like yourselves that have taught me what I know. And so I'm just trying to flip it back and give it back to you guys, because having the opportunity to talk to so many people has given me a lot of information and a wealth of knowledge that I can just turn around and give back. When I was early on the early parts of my journey, I just wanted to know what other people's stories were, which is why our Conduit of the Month and the stories that they're telling that you guys will have access to when you guys sign up for the group memberships. And you'll also get some of this will be on YouTube as well. Hearing other people's stories that were on this journey and have met their twin flame and have, gone through the spiritual experiences, that meant everything to me. I just wanted to know, am I the only one? What has the other people's experiences been? How did they react to this situation and that situation? And that is a huge, like, we're all teachers for each other. We're teachers to you. You guys are teachers to us. And that's just the way that it works. And that's why this community, that's the way that we've built it, is for all of you guys to be able to share with each other and exchange information.
We want to really be humble. We were talking just by example about a gentleman, I think it's Santos.
Santos Bonacci.
Yesterday, and he is very well acquainted with topics.
Yeah, very knowledgeable.
But he can also, when people who are like me and asking a bunch of questions out of curiosity, he can be a little bit, he's an expert.
Yeah.
In our community, we're going to really focus on being humble and knowing that everybody we speak to knows something we don't know.
Even if they don't agree with us. People that I don't agree with sometimes they bring me knowledge that I'm like, wow, or they make me think, oh, I didn't think of it that way before. So I think that the ability to be able to have the open debate. Yes, he is a fiery Aries, absolutely.
Passionate, but that might be construed sometimes as being a little overbearing. But I think he's just passionate, right?
He is very, very passionate because he's a wealth of knowledge and information. And I don't necessarily agree with everything that he teaches, but I've learned a ton of things by listening to him, as well as many other. I actually don't think I've ever met a teacher anyone that I've agreed with 100% of everything,
Well,
right?
good
We're
for
all
you.
individual, right?
Yeah,
We're all individuals.
We're not going into echo chambers here.
Right.
I think Colin has said it eloquently on many occasions that it's a safe forum where we can agree, we can disagree, and nobody has to be right. There's a difference between being right and doing the right thing. That's a lesson my father taught me many years ago. So anyway, Joanne is asking me, how do I release a twin flame?
Oh, it sounds complicated, but it's actually not. Like, if we let go of all of the ideas that we need to release something in order to release it, then that's kind of when we suddenly free ourselves. We actually have a video, I think it was called The Elephant in the Rope, that touches on this. And also the other one too. I don't remember the name of it. If you look at our story time series, we have a couple of, stories that are
The Man on the Bridge.
Yeah, The Man on the Bridge. They're metaphors for kind of exactly that. It's not talking about the twin flame, but it's the same. It's the moral of those stories that applies to what you're asking. Oftentimes, the things that we're bound by, we're actually not bound by them other than the belief that we're bound by it. So in order to release your twin flame is to just recognize that there's not something that you even need to release. Your mind might say, well, yeah, I don't want to think about them. I don't want the obsessive thinking anymore. I don't want to feel the feelings of sorrow or grief or sadness, pain that come along with having met my twin flame. But those individual things are actually coming from something different. One of the examples that I've given a lot, and Brent's heard me talk about it, is if you're like on a boat and you're, in like Iceland and you see a whole bunch of icebergs floating around on the surface of the water, you might think that all of those are individual icebergs. But if you were to delve down beneath the surface, you would see that underneath they're all connected to one large iceberg with just little points that are sticking up above the surface. The feelings that we have that we attribute to issues with the twin flame are just that. There's a deeper root cause and a deeper root reason for why we're experiencing that with the twin flame. The twin flame comes in and just acts like a giant magnifying glass that causes you to suddenly realize, oh my gosh, I've got and I'm not saying this about you, Joanne, I'm just giving some examples. It could be abandonment issues. It could be codependency issues. It could be, fear of loss, not being accepted, fear of being judged, fear of what you look like. We experience all kinds of things. And when you meet your twin flame, all those things are triggered to a much higher degree, but it's actually kind of a blessing. It serves as a purpose. It's part of the purpose of the journey with your twin flame, is that you have to look at yourself and go, wait a second, why are all these things here? And why are they this person came in and ignited something in you, and you experience all these things on a much deeper and much more profound level, but they're all things that are still part of your normal average everyday life. It's just magnified. And so it helps you to actually be able to isolate, well, what is the root cause of where all this fear-based energy is coming from? And that can take a little while to peel away some of those layers. And so be patient with yourself. You don't actually need to release your twin flame because you never possessed them and they never possessed you. The love that you had for your twin flame is still your love that you are able to experience whenever you want, when you realize that no one can give you love and no one can take away love. It is something that you actually create within yourself and experience all by yourself. The love that you felt that felt so good when this person was around was always inside of you. And so it's only the mind that says, well, when they're here, I have permission to feel that. And when they're gone, I don't have permission to feel that anymore. That's your mind telling you that something outside of you was responsible for that love. And that is actually an illusion. It's a lie, honestly, that the ego tells us. Your love is your love, and you experience it when you give yourself permission to feel it. And that's why monks and spiritual teachers are always telling you to go within, that what you seek outside of you is actually found within you. that's where true nirvana and peace comes from, is when you recognize that you are the creator of that and you're only the one that experiences it. I don't feel the love inside of you. You do, right? You don't feel the love inside of me. I do. We can tell each other, I love you, right? He can say it to me, but when he says that, the love that I feel in response to that was created and generated inside of me and experienced by me. And I think that that is something that's super important to understand, because when your twin flame ran away, you fell for the mind telling you, well, you're not allowed to feel that anymore. And so you don't need to release them. Okay. You don't need to stop loving anything. You are love itself. So that would be I hope that helps you, Joanne, and gives you a little bit of insight into that. I know it can feel really complicated, but underneath the surface, when we get rid of all the layers that make it feel complicated, we're like, oh, it's actually quite simple. Isn't everything in life like that?
Well, there are people who will trick us into overcomplicating things. And if you've ever read a legal document or some other types of papers, you'll see that they could explain things in a much more stripped down, clear way, but there are some that want to make topics more complicated than they are. My opinion is that the genius is making complicated topics sound simple.
Yeah.
And there's we also, to use another analogy, we can think of watching an athlete or somebody who's well versed in anything doing a podcast, whatever, and it looks so effortless and fluid, but yet there's great talent and skill in making that look so easy to do.
Yeah.
And I think the same can be said. Sometimes we can get caught up in that in the spiritual community, any community, quite frankly, but the spiritual community is not immune to that, I guess is my point.
No, if anything, sometimes it can be even more complicated. It can feel more complicated because we are trying to express things that words actually don't do justice to. Because words are, one of the things words are dead. They're just symbols, right? We can speak them. Now, words have power and words have meaning. Words actually have creative power. But when I say words are dead, what I mean is they are subject to the interpretation of whoever is listening to the words.
Right.
Or, when I say a word, I might have a completely different intention and meaning and understanding of it than the person that's hearing it has. And so that's how misconceptions or misunderstandings can happen between people and situations and stuff like that, because we perceive things through our own lens. And communication can make things, especially in the twin flame community, or not twin flame, but spiritual community, be even more complicated, because we are trying to use something of this world to explain something not of this world.
To that end, we are working on our Conduits lexicon of terms and phrases, and it's for that exact reason, so that we can all be on the same page. And that's something you get when you are in the membership package. You get access to the lexicon. We're going to have a couple of iterations of the lexicon, one kind of a beginner with 10 to 15 key terms and phrases, and then we'll kind of add some that are a little more advanced as we go. But we need to be speaking the same language and understanding the terminology, because I have found in my short year and a bit that different people seem to use the same words and phrases and
have different meanings.
Seemingly different meanings. So it can become confusing.
And I think the lexicon will also serve another purpose for you guys. It'll introduce you to a lot of language that maybe within the spiritual community you're not familiar with, which might spark like some of your spiritual understanding. So like if you're looking at the lexicon and you see something about a Taurus field or something like that, you're like, well, what is that? But if it's in our lexicon that it has something to do with your spiritual process and journey and experience as a human. And so it can like lead you to see like, oh, I want to investigate that, or I want to know what that is and learn a little bit more about that. Like why do the platonic solids have something to do with spirituality? You know, it can ignite questions and curiosity that will help you to branch out into understanding, because there are two kind of components to spirituality that I think you'll notice that the world sort of separates and acts like they're not combined, right? It acts like they don't have anything to do. It's this or this. You got people who are like, oh, it's all about science and it's all about knowledge and education, and that's it. They don't even acknowledge spirituality. And then you got people over here that are like, oh, it's all about spirituality, and they don't acknowledge anything to do with knowledge. They say just go Zen, just be like, you know, in meditation all the time, quit thinking completely, and, you know, just be in a state of nonstop presence. And one's not bad and one's not good. And you know what I mean?
It's raining. I just don't know if I left Cassius outside.
Oh no, you brought him in.
Is he in? Okay.
I believe you brought him in.
Cassius?
Yeah, he's in.
Okay, he's here.
But
To that end, one of the topics that you've been researching recently, and you've given me a little beginner crash course, is this idea of the field around us.
Yes.
And how that relates to both a scientific principle and a spiritual principle.
Well, that's what we're kind of starting to understand. And those of you that are on a spiritual path are going to notice that you've got these two different things. And it's like, okay, you know, if I'm only focusing on just the spiritual stuff and I'm just going into meditation and I'm only looking at that and I'm foregoing everything that has to do with mind and knowledge and learning and understanding, it's like cutting off your left arm because you think it's not important to you. You know, you have both sides of this. We are here in duality, and spirituality and like knowledge are absolutely part of the same thing. And you do not have wisdom until you can combine knowledge and experience. And I would say spirituality is experience. And we can't just do this or this. We need to really kind of like look at both. The world that we live in, honestly, focuses far more on knowledge and what we would call like left brain mentality. And it doesn't really give us a whole lot in like the whole creative side, which is tapping into the spiritual aspects.
Or self-study for that matter. I really have been an advocate of self-study. And
thank you, BH.
You know, I think that sometimes we get caught up in this knowledge vortex. We have to go to this university or this college and whatever. And I'm a guy with several degrees, but I've never touted anybody as intelligent or having emotional intelligence or EQ. Some of the most brilliant people I know didn't even get through high school. And I have traveled globally, and I have seen genius on factory floors abroad and been, my goodness, how is this gentleman figuring this out without a scintilla of background engineering and math education? Well, he's smart as hell. That's why. He gets it. He's done it. He's put in the experience of being on that factory floor for 25 years. And so I think this spiritual community is very much a self-study community to a large degree. Most of you, you know, and I'm sure we have some very highly educated. I'm not denouncing that in itself. What I'm saying is spirituality transcends that.
Yeah.
And
it does.
Sometimes we get caught up in knowledge and forget about the benefits of experience. In fact, there's nothing quite like living it. You can read it in a book until you do it.
Yeah. Well, and the spiritual journey. So
Cam,
when we are only learning about knowledge, that's like the majority of our life. There's something that happens to us when we go into like there is a shift that takes place inside of us when we go onto our spiritual path. Some people have a spiritual interest before this change happens, and they're spiritually curious and they want to know, but they're looking at it still from let's only gather knowledge, because that's all we know at that point. There is something that actually happens to us when we shift on this internal, like it's like our consciousness lights up, like when you turn on a light bulb. That's how I would explain it. And some people call it Christ consciousness. Some people call it Kundalini. There is something that does happen and I can kind of go into that at some point in time a little bit
And
more in depth.
Those topics are so good for the group calls where we can all openly speak and we go over these in detail. It can be challenging on a live video where people are typing.
Well, and it's too much. It's too much information. There's too much that comes along with.
Some of these are 4, 5, 6 part series.
Well, yeah, because it's taken me years and years and years to learn this stuff. But all of you guys that have gone through that spiritual awakening, those two components, make sure that you're giving attention to both. You want to give yourself time to be, practicing presence, being in that moment, taking yourself and going inward. But you also want to allow that external information to come in so that on that internal level, you can take that and combine that and create that wisdom and have that internal, you take that outside knowledge and you internalize it through the experience of spirituality.
It is a balance, Laura. Yes.
Yeah.
One word saying so much.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So yes, I think that will probably maybe kind of resonate with you guys. You're going to see both types in the spiritual community and in life in general. And the truth of the matter is, a coin is one coin. Two sides it's still the same coin. If it lands heads up or tails up, it's still the same coin. Spirituality,
unless it's a rigged coin that's double heads, in which case
no, it's still one coin.
It's still one coin.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's still one coin. A coin is a coin. And when you have spirituality and you have knowledge, when you have material world and you have spirituality, they're actually combined to one thing. So earlier when I said words are dead and we're using something of this world to explain something not of this world, that's actually not 100% accurate. But again, it's because of the limitations of language. And so everything in this world, when you understand the field, like what you brought up, the field of consciousness, and you start to understand, and this is why gathering knowledge so that you can internalize that through your spiritual experience is so important. When you start to understand the relationship that you have as a soul, which is consciousness, which is part of that field, to the world of matter, that's when you can really start using and understanding how you can create and manifest the life that you want. And that's what your spiritual journey is pushing you into, is to become a conscious creator so that you understand how you're creating. So you're not creating willy-nilly on accident anymore. Now you actually know how to use your magic wand. And so you can make the life circumstances that you want manifest and come to you a certain way. Cause and effect is a real thing, you guys, not just on the physical plane, but on the spiritual plane as well. They're actually 100% intertwined. You throw a rock into the water, you're going to create ripples. Okay. This world that we live in is kind of like a giant, thing of water. When you put energy out, it creates ripples that go out much further than you on a physical and a mental level can even understand. And so learning that and going further and further and further into the dimensions of understanding of what that is, you can almost get to a place of clairvoyance where you can understand how things are going to work because you just have so much knowledge. You can see around corners that you couldn't see before, and other people won't know how you can see around those corners, but it's just a part of the evolution. I can see around corners that my kids can't. They're so limited in their little decade of life that they don't understand things, right?
Yeah, usually they're approaching from different corners and knocking heads.
Right, bumping into each other, right?
We've all seen that coming. It's like, you're about to crash into each other.
Right.
Okay, then. I'm just going to read Fleur has, if you associate as being the divine feminine, the conscious aspect of the soul, and the divine masculine aspect, the unconscious aspect of the soul, is already you too, in you or part of you already then. So it's not about another person.
Exactly. The definition of twin flames is two bodies, one soul. But what we see over and over again is duality. Duality manifests all over the place in this world. Everything in this world is duality. Okay. Two sides, one coin. comes from the same, it's one, that's the monad, but then it, splits into the two, right? We see that even in an embryo, right? It starts out as one, becomes two. You get the Vesica Pisces. You see that all over spiritual buildings, right? Like there's a whole bunch of spiritual knowledge just in that right then and there. But you have the two bodies. I have two hands. My whole body is a representation of duality. I have two hemispheres of the brain, right? Which creates a torus field. It actually looks like a torus field. These similarities are not by chance. It's 100% because it's the pattern, the blueprint that this physical realm that we live in follows. We see it mathematically. We see it all over the place. When you have the two bodies, right? This is the way that it's been explained to me and the way that I understand it to where I'm at right now. And just like you, I am evolving in this process. As every teacher, there is no such thing as someone who knows everything, just so you guys know. So don't ever fall for a guru that tells you that they know exactly like it is, because they're still evolving too. If they weren't, they wouldn't be here. Okay. They'd be some ascended master somewhere in who knows what dimension. But anyway, you've got the two bodies, which is just two people, right? You got this body and that body, and everybody gets so focused on that. Okay. This person comes in and they're a catalyst for you. The truth of the matter is the energies that you need to balance are the two energies within you. The caduceus that we see on all the medical buildings is actually Thoth's staff, right? It's Hermes' staff or Moses' staff. It's got the serpents that are going up it. That's the two energies that are inside of you. You do have energy channels within you, and Eastern religions have been far more forthcoming with that knowledge than what you see in like Christian religions. But they're actually all saying the same thing. The truth is these religions that have come from the original root knowledge of humanity, they've formed and developed differently depending on the cultures and the way that they became, but they're all coming from the same source. And so those energies within you, Adam and Eve, right? That's what we call it in the Christian religion. It's these two energies within you that create enlightenment, but it's the experience of going through that. So yes, you want to balance these energies. It's not about them. It's about you. And you'll hear people say, well, once you balance yourself, then your twin flame acts differently. Well, yeah, because it's all about polarity, right? We have polarizations in this world, and you balancing yourself out, you are you become that neutral, that center point, that bullseye, the place in the infinity sign where the two cross, right? Like there's the what do they call it? The 0 point energy, right? You become that. You're no longer polarized against all these different energies that are out there, because everything stems from the masculine and the feminine, but it's about energy. It's positive and negative energy flows within this universe. And they know now everything is energy. Everything breaks down to energy, even solid matter.
So I have an interesting, somewhat beginner question. Mm-hmm. Can someone self-proclaim as a guru, or do you have to be anointed that by a community of other people?
Both. There's lots of.
Should we believe the self-proclaimed guru?
There's all these people out there that are self-proclaimed gurus. There's a lot of them out there, and I don't like it. You're your own guru. That's the truth. You inside, the only guru that you should ever follow is the guru inside of you, which is your own inner compass.
The guru in you.
The guru in you.
Trademarked. Right. The Conduits 2023. I want to go to VH. I wonder whether there's someone else who can trigger a spiritual awakening. Met someone else after my twin flame, and everything between us happened exactly as it did with my twin flame. Yes. Can you double up on twin flames? Or
no?
Okay.
No. You don't. But that's the thing, is like, that's why I don't like the name, the label twin flame. You're going to meet a lot of different people that are going to be catalysts in your journey. Okay. You can have more than one twin flame. All this stuff is things
you can or cannot.
You cannot, I don't believe. But how the heck am I supposed to know?
No.
Just like anyone else.
You don't know everything, just like we're saying.
Right.
Is it possible? Well,
we're
I
learning,
guess.
we're figuring it out. I mean, at one point in time, the light bulb didn't exist, right? It became something that it existed within, because all things under the sun, everything exists. We are just rediscovering it. It already exists. If you can create a light bulb, it already exists within the realm of of the all. Okay. However, it's you kind of pulling that and bringing it out. So you create that, you pull it out of the ether, you pull it out of the field, and you create it into the world of form. What we're doing right now is we're trying to figure out what this phenomenon is with this other person. And this goes all the way back to Plato, right? So this isn't something that is new to like the new age community or, modern day. Maybe how we talk about it is different than the way that they spoke about it back then. But it's the same thing. We're just using different language, and we're trying to understand why this happened to us. We've all experienced something that was extraordinarily profound. And just like humans, right? I can tell I'm a human by looking at myself. You can tell you're a human by looking at yourself, but we don't look anything alike, right? We're totally unique. And so there's similarities that we know, okay, we are on a twin flame journey because there's these
or a
similarities.
meetup dance party is also happening somewhere online.
Right.
Or there's a meetup somewhere between Ohio and Oklahoma for a gigantic jamboree going on. You can't see because you're blind, but I'm reading the comments.
I'm like, you lost me there.
Yeah, okay. So, all right, you're not reading the comments.
Right here.
Okay. Anyway.
But yeah, there's similarities in the twin flame journey where okay, I am on it. That's why when you find people talking about it, you're like, oh, they get it. Like you have this really weird, profound experience and you don't know anyone and you didn't even know it existed. And you're like, this weird thing happened to me. And then you're looking on Google and somebody else is like, this happened to me. And you're like, oh my gosh, they understand, they get it. But then you get a little more into their journey and you're like, wait, that's not the same. That's not the same. That's not the same. Well, that's because you're still unique, right? Yeah. So yeah, this journey, this phenomenon is real. Because
there can be markers, similar markers, right, but with differentiation.
Right.
Sorry.
We all end up in tarot. We all end up seeing synchronicities. We all end up having these like dark night of the soul experiences. We start to have like weird abilities that we didn't have before this happened to us. We start having strange dreams and like, there's weird stuff that goes along with it. And that's why we know something really weird happened and we're trying to put it all together. But we also, we're all extraordinarily unique. And so you're not going to, that's why this journey, and I believe that the whole point of this being your spiritual journey is that you can't actually find the answers outside of you.
I want to go to Sephora's comment, and it was a topic.
First, you can't find it outside of you because it's designed that way because you have to go within. I just needed to finish that part so that they understand, because leaving that tail end off, it won't make sense.
Yeah, I did to that point, which was kind of an adder, which is Sephora saying, I feel the more I'm growing, the less I know. And we had quite a good dialogue on a group call about that topic. And I think that's a beautiful expression of humility that I also feel. There's an ever expanding pool of things. As you start searching and seeking out information, you find, oh, there's a whole other world happening over here that I wasn't even aware of. And that's taking me, wow, I don't really know anything. Well, and then that's nothing to put yourself down about. That's really something that indicates what your character is in chasing this information.
Yeah. Agreed.
So, and then I think the follow-up I saw, no, it may have been back a few comments ago, but anyway, yeah, so that was, oh, and then I just wanted to mention Sephora saying, the bullseye infinity sign, and it's part of the reason, part of Andrea's profound awakening experience involves a raven, which is the reason our logo centers around a raven. But within that raven, if you look at a larger version of it, there are various symbology to look at, including the bullseye target.
Yeah. How this journey reveals itself to you is going to be unique from anybody else's, right? The raven means something special to me. The bullseye means something special to me. I share those things with you. But like Colin has some really cool metaphorical stories that he tells about how the journey revealed itself to him. And same with Cam and you, and Sephora has expressed some things in group calls and stuff where I'm like, wow, that's so cool. And that's why the calls and stuff are so cool, because you're talking with people we're all going at the level of consciousness that we're at, but within our community, we do have a lot of people who are all going through similar yet different experiences, and we can share all that knowledge with each other. And I walk away every single time feeling like I learned something new.
Colin is mentioning something called the stick in the river, and he is a gifted writer. He's going to be doing a relatively shortened version of his stick in the river story, and we're going to put it on story time. And but in addition to that, Colin is going to be our Conduit of the Month for August, I believe, and we've got a 3-part interview with Colin in which he is extremely vulnerable. If you have a membership, you'll have access to that interview, and you'll hear about Colin's story, his vulnerabilities, his dark night of the soul, his wisdom, which is really true, where he has extensive knowledge base and extensive, experience base. He's been through it, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
True was in the chat, Cam, and I'm not sure if Letitia is still here or not, but True's interview is also upcoming.
Yep.
And hear about her story and how she got through it.
Yeah.
It being whatever it is on your plate. And again, these are really helpful to give credence to the experiences we're going through, even though they are unique to these individual Conduit community members. They're oh so healing, and
they are.
So I just offer that those are forthcoming.
Well, I think that's actually what's really cool about this, because the spiritual journey is the hero's journey. And if you guys don't know what the hero's journey is, look it up. It's really what the tarot cards are all about. The fool's journey, the hero's journey are the same thing. It's just somebody made like a card deck out of it. So we're all on the hero's journey. We're all the center of our own little universe and our own experience in this world, right? You're the center of yours. I'm the center of mine. We share that with each other, but you're always the center of your own. But so you're the hero of your own journey. And the wounded healer is what I see a lot of that happening within the spiritual community. That's why these stories that we're putting out with the Conduit of the Month and with our interview series is so profound, because all of these people become amazing, teachers to each other, because in order to become a healer and to heal, you have to heal your own wounds. You're the wounded healer. You healed your own wounds, therefore you're able to turn around. My mom told me once that a lot of people that go into the realm of psychology and they get their education in psychology, oftentimes they're people that have gone through very traumatic experiences in their life. And so they go into the field of psychology and they have such an interest and deep passion toward it because they're trying to heal themselves. And then they turn around and heal others through that. Business too. People, like, there's a lot of spirituality in the business world, and people that go through those experiences can then turn around and share through their own experience the wisdom that they learned along the way. That's why our elders and people who have experience in different areas are the ones that we go to, and we call them the experts. They became the experts on something because they experienced it. You can't really be an expert on anything until you've experienced it and combined knowledge. You have to have both. I can't become an expert on something if I don't have knowledge on it. And if I have knowledge on it, but I have no experience, I still don't have everything that it takes. And so it's the combination of those things. And so that is something that I think you're going to see a lot of benefit to in that, Conduit of the Month and the series that came out, which, by the way, Conduit of the Month was this guy's idea. And I love it. It's
and don't forget,
cool.
Don't forget, also coming up, one of the ways we communicate universally is through music. And and I know there are some musicians in the community. If you are a musician, I know Just Me is a musician, and several other people have, I want to say, it's escaping me, but there was a drummer, I think, in the New York area. We'd love to share music. We'd like to play it in interludes and precursors to group calls, and put it online for other members to enjoy and share. So I'm just going to go to Muckle's comment. I was reading that you've forgotten some of the correct information and terminology, and it's hard to explain it. I do feel the same way. You've lost touch with the real world, information, education, nerves required for my job suffers. Spirituality business is not going to pay the bills. Well, you have to be pragmatic about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Andrea is saying, just going into complete Zen and hoping and wishing something is going to happen is not manifesting.
No.
There's an execution part to that.
But if you're in the dark night of the soul, be patient with yourself. When I went through that, I couldn't work. I went to work. I still managed to get up.
Being productive.
And I went, and I was still being productive. But at the time I was taking calls, and I would cry in between calls. And I would try to hold it in, and I would sit in my little cubicle, and I was doing my work because I had to do my work, but I was going through all of that at the same time. My nerves were shot. I was having obsessive thinking. I would just like be dying for breaks and dying to get out of work, and then I wouldn't even be able to make it home. I'd have to pull over and like cry in my car on the way home because I was going through some really intense stuff. And so, Muckle, you're going through some very intense things. Be very, very, very patient with yourself.
Yes. And
give yourself whatever. I used to hide behind the freaking barbecue just to get away from my kids for 10 minutes because I needed that 10-minute break.
I'm going to tell Muckle as well that, and I'll just share this. I may have said it offhandedly at some point in a call, but I went through an extreme depression, such a dark depression that I couldn't get out of bed.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm a business owner and I'm traveling and I couldn't get on an airplane. I couldn't get out of bed. I was so debilitated by the darkness surrounding me that curling up in a ball and crying was about all I could muster. And I can express it this way. People say, well, just stick it out and get through. And that's nice to say until you're in it. And it's not that you're trying to look to get through the day. You're trying to look to get through the next 60 seconds. It's that intense. So anybody who has actual depression, and sometimes we throw that word around a little too frivolously for those who have actually had very dark depression. I get it. I have an extreme empathy to somebody who is going through that incredible darkness. Where you're so low, you're not sure you can make it through. So, Muckle, thank you for sharing that. The interesting thing is, you go to this bottom of the pit and you look up and you can't see light, and you have to have somewhat of a radical acceptance mindset. I am here now.
Yeah.
This effing sucks. I have kids to take care of. I have a job. I have a business. But you can break through that darkness. And then you'll just see just a speck of light there. And then you get out and you start exercising. And you realize that, okay, that's good for my soul. It's good for my dopamine levels.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You're trying to get rid of the cortisol levels of the stress that is keeping you cyclically in this dark place, and okay, I'm ascending. I have gone down into this pit, and I am coming through, and I see, okay, it's still cloudy, but I'm coming up through it, and I see a speck of light, and then it gets progressively better, and you get outside of yourself.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Muckle, you're not pathetic. I want you to know that.
Absolutely not.
You're not pathetic. Like, what you're going through is actually like what Colin said. This is just
so first of all, you're here
ego.
in the conduit community, so that automatically makes you non-pathetic. That makes you a hero.
Yeah, well, because you're getting out and you're sharing what you're going through. I love that you are sharing this, because all these people that are listening that are going through something similar yet different to you are going to resonate and understand. Like, I'll tell you, Muckle, when I was in the dark night of the soul, you guys have heard me talk about this before. There was this moment where I was laying on my sofa. I was only in it for like, I don't know, a couple weeks at this point. And I was just crying. I couldn't sleep at night. I'd sleep for like maybe an hour. my mind was just going like 100,000 miles an hour, just all the time. And it was all this negative stuff. And it was all fear-based. It was like an engine just constantly like pumping it out. And I had finally, like I was laying on the sofa. I literally felt like I was being tortured by my own mind. And I was actually being tortured by my own mind. And that was the beauty of the moment that I was in at that time, because it showed me that I was being tortured and had been for a very long time. I just was unaware of it. So I heard like my voice. It's like I almost had this moment where I finally suddenly realized that there was a voice in my head that was like, you're not good enough, smart enough, cool enough, pretty. No one's ever gonna love you. You're so pathetic. Like I told myself all the time how pathetic I was, how ugly I was, how stupid I was. I didn't think I was smart. Like all these things, that like I realized I had been telling myself my whole life.
I felt the same way.
And I look back now, like I remember like sitting around doing dishes and my mind was just constantly ruminating on all these awful things. No wonder I was having the difficulties that I was having, because my mind was just mean as hell to me. And I don't know exactly like where that came from, but I knew at that moment, like I actually thought to myself, whoa, I would never talk to anyone else that way. I would never say the things that my mind was saying to me. Never in a million, even my worst enemies, I would never talk to them in the evil way that my own mind was talking to me. It was like brutal. And I was like, why am I talking to myself like that? And at the time, I didn't realize that I wasn't the mind. My thoughts, I believed, were my own thoughts. I was very entranced with them. And so that was like the first moment where I was like, wait a minute, why am I talking to myself like that? I would never talk like that to anyone. And that kind of started the ball rolling in a certain direction that allowed me, and it took about the worst of my dark night of the soul was about a 6-month long period. But it peaked. It was definitely the worst in the beginning, and then it slowly teetered out. And so 6 months later, when I was still feeling it, it was nowhere near to the same degree that it was in the beginning. But I'd say it was a total of about 2 years before the oscillations of that really went away.
And I think one of the key points we're finding here, I know Francis is mentioning about almost an inability to take care of your one child.
Yeah.
Muckle, you've just seen the power of the Conduit community coming to your aid. We've all gone through something, and there is an expression I've mentioned a few times on a call. We mentioned it, that I have a very dear friend of mine. She just happens to be 94 years old that lives down the street, and we play cards weekly, and sometimes Andrea comes and we meet other neighbors there. We have a saying about how to be empathetic. We're all a member of the walking wounded.
Yes,
we just don't know it. We look at the person in Costco, or the person who appears to be not paying attention in their car, or whatever. It could very well be that they are a member of the walking wounded. I think maybe in fact at some time or another we're all in that group. Some people carry it around and are part of it longer on an ongoing basis. So if we can kind of go into encounters with people thinking, yeah, this person could be going through something, and approach it with empathy. Now, they might give you several reasons not to give them too much empathy. Past that, there are some just dicks out there. So let's call an ace an ace and a spade a spade.
Ego.
Yeah, they're in their ego and whatever. But if we can at least approach it with, hey, this gal is a member of the walking wounded. Let's show that empathy and caring. That's part of what the community is about.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we've got anything more, or we should about wrap it up.
Thank you, Muckle. I'm glad that we were able to give you a little bit of something to
But I also want to tell Muckle, and this is a little bit of tough love, don't stay in that and use it as an excuse. You have to get out of that mindset.
Because you deserve better.
You are something. Don't coddle yourself. You're allowed to be in a moment where you need to just breathe and coddle and whatever. But you get up and out of that state.
Be patient with yourself love yourself. But yeah, it's balance, right? You have to have both.
Yeah.
You can't stay in that space. You got to tough love your way out of it.
Yeah.
But you have the ability to do it. Like, you wouldn't be going through this right now if you didn't have the ability to be able to get through it. I 100% believe in you. I know that you can, and I know that you will. And I know that the reason that you're going through all of this is because there's something really special inside of you that the rest of the world needed. The universe doesn't make mistakes.
Mako, you're going to get out of this. Get moving.
Yes.
All right.
Love yourself enough.
Don't stay in that state any longer than you absolutely have to. You've got too much to express and too much to teach and give other people.
Yep.
So we're not going to let you, you fall down 7 times, you get up 8.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. One of the things I like to tell twin flames out there, love yourself and give yourself what you wanted someone else to give you. You be the one that gives that to you. You absolutely, you're with yourself all the time. You are the center of your own little universe, and you show up for yourself for the first time. You tell yourself that you're worthy enough for the first time. You show up for yourself that way. Everything changes when you decide to show up for yourself.
Fantastic. You guys share your conduit energy out there in your community, in your world. Be good to one another. This is likely our last YouTube live. We may do one more occasionally here and there, but not weekly.
Yeah.
Please jump on the group calls, CM1, CM2, and TFM3 packages.
Yeah, you guys can ask all these questions there.
We have, for those of you who have a single question, we have ask a question, get a video reply. We have personal tarot readings done by Andrea. We have one-on-one coaching sessions with Cam. We have one-on-one coaching sessions with Andrea. I'm going to do one-on-one coaching sessions as well, which happy to talk about spirituality, but probably more geared toward business, entrepreneurship, career advice, etc. You're a blessing to us.
You guys are.
We're all part of this together. We're grateful. We love you.
Yeah, we do love you guys.
And till next time.
Yep, we'll see you guys next time.
See ya. Bye.